Hello, everyone, and welcome to another American Scouser podcast. I am your host, Timuchin, and this Thursday we have it's been a while since we did one together, right? Three of us, but with us
Yep.
with is first off is Chris. Quit your morning strain. What's going on there?
How's it going, dude?
So we'll definitely get to that whole bitching and moaning concept because it was kind of part of David Rice's article, which we're gonna get to. And David Rice is also with us from his new joint in Atlanta. And we were just talking about how he's traveling around town, hotel to hotel. What's going on, David?
Not much. Living this nomad life for a minute here.
That can be interesting, but I can see it getting old fast as well.
Yeah, I'm ready to have a house. I'm not gonna lie, man.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Okay, so we got a lot to cover today. Obviously, we're gonna definitely touch up on the Benfica game and the matchup. We'll probably take a sneak peek at like the semifinal too. We got a long ways to go for that. And then I want to touch up on David's article and kind of talk about like this whole April thing as well. And then obviously we'll look ahead to the weekend. But let's start with yesterday. Um, Despite some storms and tornado alerts and stuff like that, we were able to do our ratings and we kind of touched up on it, but I want to talk to you guys about it a lot more. We put up a totally unexpected lineup. We even tweeted out on our Twitter account, which if you're not following us, please do on there as well. That probably nobody got this lineup right, Chris? I mean, I can't see anybody
Yeah.
saying this is the way to go.
This is yeah. The fact that Jota and Firmino started together that's always a shocker for me when I see them both start because in my head I've got them playing in the same position and I forget how sort of versatile our front line is. So and then to see Diaz pop up on the right hand side, yeah, I wasn't expecting that either. So yeah, it was all kinds of craziness. This was kind of like you know second round of the Carabao Cup kind of lineup. I was like, okay, so he obviously thinks we've got enough, but yeah, I was surprised.
And that was the thing, David. Does that lineup make you nervous? I mean, I'm always nervous, even though I was kind of going comfortable into that game. And I hate to say it, I saw that lineup and I was like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know if we're kind of taking it too lightly. What did you think?
I didn't really think so. I thought that he's gonna have a mad one somewhere just because with the amount of games that we have, he's got to do some rotation. He's got to find spaces for Salah, for Van Dijk, for some of these guys to get a rest. This was actually, if you kind of look at how you might plan it out game by game, probably his best option was to do it here, given that we had the 3-1 lead. If the score isn't that going in, we're looking at a completely different game, right? Like we're looking at a completely different lineup. But because it was what it was and he felt like at home, all we need is a couple of goals and probably this thing's done. So I wasn't too surprised. I don't think I saw that lineup necessarily. I don't think I definitely didn't see James Milner playing, but it just shows how much he still trusts him at his age. And it's as long as he's not playing every game, James Milner's still a very capable player. Yeah, I don't think either saw Gomez either necessarily, but Trent's got to get a break in there too. It pretty much tells you a lot about the weekend's lineup too. So.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, it was nice to see that in a way. When we were talking on Monday's podcast, we were like, oh, maybe you'll see Costas, maybe you'll see Gomez. But our thinking was, but there's no way in hell you're going to see all three of them change at the same time. And then, wait, four of them? I can't remember the last time, unless he was hurt, not seeing Van Dijk in there. So that was a first by itself. But
Well, I think Klopp said after the game, I think that lineup, that back four was put together like 20 minutes before they arrived at the stadium. It was a makeshift back four. I think maybe it was just a last minute decision that they were like, okay, maybe let's give Virgil the rest. But I was kind of happy to see Costas because I was saying, well, in the Discord, if you haven't joined yet, join the Discord. That guy from a dead ball, his consistency is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't have the free kick ability of maybe putting the ball on the top corner like Trent does, but his corners are the most consistent corners I've seen from a footballer in a very, very long time. Like he beats that front post every day. I think I've only ever seen him fail to beat the front post once. You know, and it's just testament those two crosses that went in. You know that
Yep.
there was someone on the end of them. You know, because that's how good they are, and that's how consistent he is. So, yeah, he's given Robbo a right run. You know, every time he plays, he gives a good showing of himself. You know, but that's good to see because it pushes Robbo on. You know, but yeah, always nervous when Virgil doesn't start, and yeah, but hey, we're in the next round. Who cares?
And I think that was the thing, like you see all these changes, but if Van Dijk is there, I get the sense that, he'll set the line, he'll control, he'll communicate, he'll keep everybody where they should be. And then I'm like, and it almost like assumed he was in the lineup. Then I did a double take, like, wait, Matip and Konate are out there, so where the hell is Van Dijk? He's playing defensive mid or something. And yeah, so that was, I guess, the worry. And it did show, how we did do the mistakes, and probably if Van Dijk is there, we're not conceding those 3 goals. But more importantly, let's talk about this. And by the way, talking about the Discord fan channel, we kind of posted every time we post the image, like an invite. Do join us. Megan actually was the one I think that called it too, in terms of Costas' corners, and then boom, he has the freaking assist right afterwards. But
yeah.
I think the bigger topic that we kind of had a good discussion on the Discord fan channel when we were watching the game was regarding the substitutions, which I'm sure Benfica was like, what the hell? We had just gone up 2-1, and then you see those players start rolling in off the bench. If you're Benfica, you're like, what the hell? What did you think of that, David? I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020, so it's easy to say now. I think that, well, nobody got injured, everybody got some minutes, it's good. But as you're watching it, what's your thought?
Well, I thought my first thought was, man, he's really enjoying the 5 subs, right? No, because he doesn't get a chance to use it all the time. And it's actually, if you look at the course of the season, I think part of the reason we haven't had as many injuries is that in Europe, he's been able to manage everyone's minutes in a much more intelligent way. In that, Mo Salah can get 30 minutes yesterday, or, Jota doesn't have to play the whole game. And years past, we didn't have the type of depth that we have now, and we didn't have the options to change out as many people. So, you'd have to force your defenders. They're going to all play 90 minutes. Whereas yesterday, if you wanted to take somebody out, you could take out the whole midfield if you wanted, you know what I mean? Yeah. And he's doing that. And I think it's helping us. He's played it to where he's managing everyone's workload in a different way around that 5 subs rule. He's definitely, when I saw that yesterday, I just thought, well, get the most of it, Jurgen, while you can, man, because we got plenty of games coming. So yeah, take advantage of it. Do
you like the risk there, Chris? Seeing Mo come out there, God forbid something happens in a game that we had under control at the time.
I think in my head, the Mo substitution kind of made sense. He's been on a bit of a dry spell. Mm-hmm. We were kind of, in control of that game. It was a chance to bring him on and maybe get a goal, get him a bit of, get him up a bit for Saturday, So I can understand him coming in, and he's just one of those players that wants to play in every game. And luckily, knocking on wood or whatever we can knock on here, he's one of those players that doesn't really, pick up a lot of injuries, So, like Mane as well, they're hardy players. Wijnaldum was another one. They're there all the time. They just don't get injured, So you might as well utilize them. And if you want to get a player up and get him ready for Saturday, it was the perfect opportunity. The other substitutions, yeah. So Salah for Jota, Fabinho for Henderson made sense. Lock up that midfield a little bit, and Thiago for Milner. And in fairness, Milner didn't have the greatest of games. He kind of showed his age last night, which was, he made me feel old, And he usually, because he's just a little bit younger than I am, and he's still going strong. It makes me feel good. But no, there's but he looked a little bit. He just looked a step off the pace last night. But luckily, it wasn't too detrimental.
Yeah, I was talking about that in our ratings video. It reminded me of when I play indoor and in this younger. There's like two different leagues. Like one of them is a bunch of like young kids. These kids playing freaking college and stuff. So when I play with them, I kind of look like how Milner did yesterday. Like everything is a step behind. Sometimes you're slipping and sliding a bit more than everybody else, and things like that. You can kind of keep up, but not as much.
That was
Um,
something I actually noticed during the game. There was a lot of slipping,
yes,
a lot
right.
of people
Mhm.
slipping. I think they watered the pitch very heavily, and it did cause a lot of slippage. I think that's something we need to keep an eye on because when you have players like ours, like the likes of Mo Salah, the likes of even Luis Diaz, who like to turn on a dime, those slippery pitches aren't going to be good for those guys, and it can maybe draw injuries and draw tackles that can cause injuries. So I think it's something I know Klopp and the groundskeepers and they all work together to make sure that everything's the way they want it. But I think it was just a little bit too wet last night, and it was very noticeable.
And that goes both ways too. As like a defender, you don't
Yeah,
know if you're gonna slip too. So when you're trying to focus on your traction more, sometimes you're like half a second late, and that's all it takes against these guys. But
yeah,
so in terms of the risk, I understand, and my point was I think we valued more about rhythm than rest. I mean, this team, and we kind of see this after the national breaks. We're kind of like we're just not the same. We're not clicking the same way we are. This team plays more on rhythm as opposed to like kind of like on too much rest. Like it's not a team that we're like, oh, they have like if this team doesn't play for 10 days, I'm not like, great, we're gonna be rested. I'm more worried that we're gonna
yeah.
be a bit more rusty and it's gonna take time for rhythm. I mean, do you consider that day when you make those substitutions and say, hey, we need these guys getting regular minutes as opposed to saying, Thiago, why don't you just sit this entire game?
Yes and no. I mean, okay, so if he had brought on Curtis Jones, I'd say yes, right? But it's Thiago. He's been playing. Most of these guys are at a point in the season where they're pretty much in the rhythm they're going to be in. I think for me, the big thing is like when you look at it's how you're managing each player's workload, right? So we look at Matip, for example. It makes sense. Which game would you rather have Matip play in, Saturday or next Tuesday against Man United? Because you can only get one. And he's got to gamble with Matip at some point to get Van Dijk a rest. So I just think that he went, okay. If you look at the way they've done this season, Joel hasn't really played, I think, within a 3-day span of each other on very many occasions, maybe once or twice the whole season. But that's how they've kept him on the pitch, is making sure that he's got enough rest days. So, last night he goes, Matip, that's a little bit of a gamble, but it pays off. Now Van Dijk's rested, and now you're probably going to see Konate on Saturday and Matip on Tuesday. That's my prediction, anyways. But when I look at that, it's kind of like it's a risk, but the reward is I get Joel Matip next Tuesday against Man United on a week's rest. So, risk reward,
Yeah,
right?
it is. It's a lot of with the games coming in every like 3 days. It is a lot of juggling, and I know Club constantly says, looking at the next game, but it is a little bit of chess going too, where you kind of got to go a couple of steps behind to see, what you might do. I mean, nothing is given. Somebody might get a knock or something like that, but
Yeah.
you almost got to plan the best case scenario and like go about it that way. But at the end of the day, we're in the semis. It's kind of was probably not as fun to watch towards the end. But what do you make of that, Chris? I mean, like that game ends, and what is your feeling? You're like, we're in the semis, done, on to the next thing, or
Yeah.
what can we take away from that game?
We're in the next round. Happy days. Quit your crying.
Sometimes European pictures are like this, right?
Seriously though, I mean, yeah, I read David's article just before I come on, and at the end of the day, there was a whole thing about quit your crying and everything. I was like, this is perfect. This is it. Everybody go and read this article. Seriously.
Actually,
And quit your
somebody
crying.
in the U.S. fan group said this should be required reading.
Yeah.
I
definitely.
never, in my entire time of I volunteered on the board of an OLSC, and this is the first time in my entire Liverpool supporting life I've ever told someone, maybe you should find something else to do with your leisure time.
Yeah.
Because if you don't like this, if you're not having a good time, I don't think this is for you. I'll just be honest.
I don't get it. I don't get it. It's like we're we're on sort of like the cusp of one of the greatest seasons that any team has ever had. Nobody's done the quadruple ever. City have never done it. United have never done it. The great invincible Arsenal never even come close to it. And we're still in the
Even
fight.
this close.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like we're in the semi-finals of the Champions League against a Villarreal team that I think a lot of people are underestimating because results prove. And Unai Emery is a knockout king. So hey, I think we need to be on our guard for that, but we will win it. This City game on Saturday, it's another step. One step again to another trophy, and then again with everybody else, the season's over because we didn't beat City. No, we're still in it because City didn't beat us. That's the way to look at it. We're still in the fight, and they drop points against teams like Crystal Palace and stuff the way we used to, because whatever happens, they go up against a team that, for whatever reason, wants to sit back for 80 minutes and then just bang, catch them at the end. I have to disagree with David. I think it'll be reversed. I think it'll be Joel against City, and it'll be Canade against United, just on size matchups and things like that, and just how City play compared to how United play. But yeah, it's hey, quit your moaning.
So okay, David, why do you think that is then? Because the fans just don't know how to react? Because obviously nobody has been in the situation, and if you want to win a quadruple, you got to be in the finals of things. If you want to be in the finals of things, you got to be in the semifinals of things. So that's how it goes. And you're not going to play against like a third division team in semifinals where you're going to be like, oh, that's a lock. We got that. I mean, all these games are going to be difficult. Is it just, people do not know how to react because nobody has been here before? Or it's just that people are never freaking happy?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it also comes down to how long have you been doing this, right? So I think for some of us, I know I've been a Liverpool supporter for 17 years. I have seen much darker days. You know what I mean? And then this isn't my first we just do things dramatically. That is who Liverpool is. They don't. It's never the easy way. It always has to be super stressful. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I guess I'm just sort of get on board. The most Scouse thing you can do is just get behind them and believe that they're going to do it all. And that's kind of, I think, the best part of being part of this fan base is just believe in them to no end. For me though, I think some people, if you're maybe newer to it, or some of and I hate to, say some people are this, but they're out there, the glory hunters, right? And they just sort of believe everything should be perfect all the time. It's I'm going to get off track here, but it's like how people always think that they should always be happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you shouldn't always be happy.
Yes, man.
You have to experience all of it, right? But this crowd, it's they can't be happy. They can only be the other. I'm it's all. I'm looking at some of them. I'm this is psychological. I can't.
Well, I'm not
this is not like my pay scale.
Yeah, think about this though, right? No, you think about it. If say an American fan is new to the game and they come into supporting Liverpool around 2014, 2015, 2016, and you're basically, when you come into the Jurgen Klopp era and say the last 3 years, it's unprecedented what we've done. The numbers that we've hit, the amount of the lead that we won the league by, all these things, they've come into perfection. They've come into one of the greatest eras of this club ever. And when they look into the history, they see all these big other eras. So they just assume this is what Liverpool do all the time. Yet they've no idea that between 1991 and 2013, it was oh my God,
they might.
Why do I do this?
But they didn't live it. That's the problem. Is that lived experience.
Yeah.
And I think partially, it's almost worse. If you started in that time that you're saying, Chris, you kind of seeing progression, right? They're
unreal.
They got into the Champions League. Oh, they're doing it. They made it to the final, they lost. Oh, they won it. So it's almost like if you're new and have not seen the Dark Times or have not experienced the Dark Times as much, you're like, okay, now they won 2 things, then they're gonna win all the 4 things. It's like like a crazy scientist, like we're gonna win everything. It's just like the world will be ours. And I think that's just like you kind of keep expecting more and more and more, and kind of be kind of like realistic. And I think some of those disappointments do make the wins a lot more enjoyable, or that torture session that I go through on a weekly basis in front of the TV does make the win more enjoyable. I mean, I have more fun, or I remember. I mean, how many games do you remember aside from maybe the Barcelona game? And even that's like a different scenario where you won like 5-1 and stuff like that. You don't recall a lot of those games in terms of like your memory lane, but you remember like the last minute goals or stuff like that. I mean, those goals, those games, you never forget.
Or Suarez just scoring 9 million goals against Norwich. All from about 40 yards out as well. You know what I mean?
I remember there was like an 8-0 against Besiktas in the Champions League one year, and Gerrard scored this like ridiculous goal from a crazy angle. And I was just like, I don't know if I'll ever see. They won by more than a touchdown. Like,
that was a FIFA.
Hey, somebody from Turkey, trust me, they still put Beşiktaş, like when you write Beşiktaş, instead of a B, you use an 8. Looks like a B, and that's all is like for that Liverpool game right there. So that's still like a topic. But yeah, I mean, like BJ says, like the Ellison Heather. I mean,
yes,
and which is the reason why we are in the semifinal now. By the way, who the hell would guess? Yep. And like I say, I mean, like I said, we remember those games. I just, the emotion, the burst of emotion you get after a final whistle or a last minute goal is totally different than everything else, I think. So Christine says there are bandwagoners and true fans, those that jump on just for glory moments, and there's us long-suffering ones. Trust me, I'm from New England Red Sox. Need I say more? This is what makes victory so sweet. And here's the thing, this is something that, Chris knows because he's been with the site for a long time. I mean, this is something that I've fought with the site ever since we started with American Scouts for a long time. I want to make sure not every new fan is thrown in that bandwagon category either, because it's not. Everybody's a new fan at one point. But I think the overall sentiment, I agree when David says when you don't know the dark one, you can't appreciate the light as much if you have not seen the dark. I do understand that. I mean, do you agree, Chris, that that's the main reason, basically? It's just the fact that, you don't know any better in a way, or you don't know any worse.
Here's the thing. I have absolutely no problem with anybody that is a fan of this football club, whether they started supporting them yesterday or 100 years ago, because that's just the way the club is. That's who we are. We invite new people in, and the bandwagoners usually show themselves up pretty quickly and usually get ousted pretty quickly, So, yeah.
I'll tell you that's one of the things I loved about working on an OLSC for years was, some of these folks are glory hunters, but you make friends with them and you turn them into, they're no longer glory hunters. You know what I mean? Like they come in because it was successful and fun to watch, but then they started making friends and just having fun anyways. Yeah. And that was like what made it so cool is like, you were attracted to our success, but you stuck around anyways.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing, and that's what I appreciate. If people like to, you like the club. I mean, we all like the club for one reason or another. I mean, I'm originally from Turkey. I've been a fan since like 84. Yes, I'm that old. But so, you find the reason you like the team, and then you learn more and you like it even more, learn even more, you like it even more. And that's kind of like, it kind of like goes into your DNA that way. I just, I also like kind of despise the fans that kind of opposite of what you were saying, Chris, in terms of kind of shunning some of the new fans out altogether, because everybody's a new fan, especially in the US. I mean, you're going to be a new fan of the sport, leave alone, the league and the club.
Yeah. You know what I'm sitting here thinking? I'm like, I use the phrase glory hunters, but don't take any offense to it, because if you do the math on what I said, 17 years I've been a Liverpool fan. What do you suppose drew me to the club?
People got the
It was
calculators
the
out.
spring
They're
of
like, God
05.
damn it,
Take a
David.
wild guess. I was one of them, you know what I mean? But
I
made it
mean,
to the-
my first
Takes-
memory
hey, takes
is
one
the
to know one.
84 final. I mean, that's how I became a fan with those penalty kicks and stuff. I was a kid, and I was like, oh, I really like these guys. You start following them. Like I say, the more you learn, it kind of like grows on you. But I mean, and that's the thing. And I feel like I agree with Chris. I mean, I kind of hold every fan the same. I don't like the fans who think they're entitled to more or they know more because they've been to Anfield a few more times than you, or they live 50 miles away from Anfield or whatever. I really don't care because that does not measure how big of a fan you are. If anything, I almost feel like people who have kind of like taken the club as their club and supported should get it slightly more credit because, like I grew up as a Fenerbahce fan. That guy behind me right there, my grandfather, is one of their all-time best players. I mean, top 10 players of all time since 1907. It's like an old club. And I mean, yeah, I'm a big Fenerbahce fan, but I don't know if I had a lot of choice in that household. You were a Fenerbahce fan or you probably lived in a box. So, I mean, whereas, we have chosen Liverpool, and I think that should mean a lot as well.
Well, I'm kind of in that box that I don't have a choice. So, yeah. So that's just the way that is. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing: the whole thing with and I know it's kind of a fun thing to call people a wool and stuff if you're not from Liverpool, but it's kind of funny where people make fun of like, oh, have you ever been to Anfield? If you've never been to Anfield, you're not a real fan. Well, I'll tell you what, you live down the road from Anfield. You get up at you can get out of bed at 2:15 in the afternoon, have a shower, have your breakfast, and walk into the club. So somebody sitting over in Carlsbad in California is up at 3:30 in the morning to watch this team. Tell me they're not a fan. Do you know what I mean? Tell me they're not a fan. So it's, and I get that, and I get there's the hierarchy of fans and things where if you're not from Liverpool, you're a wool, but I think that's that's banter more than anything, and it's not really that serious. But there is some people, I think, like you said, to mention, that have taken the club on and almost sort of become gatekeeperish. Maybe because they were the first guy in their area that started supporting Liverpool, and all of a sudden there's an official Liverpool supporters club, and they're not the guy anymore, and they're maybe a little bit pissed off.
I call dibs.
I call dibs on Liverpool. I'm the Liverpool fan. So I get it. And hey, whatever, each of their own, do your thing, but it's whatever, man. If you're supporting the club and you're there, as long as you're not trying to bring down other fans and talking shit about them, and trying to tell people you're on a different level and things, it's we're all on the same level, mate. There's no, it's
we all take the club into our identity in a different way, I think, and what? Some of us are resume checkers, apparently.
There's a lot of
obviously there's an HR department in that.
So Pardo says, I'm not going to read the whole message, but I his issue with the Johnny Come Lately faction is the intolerance when it's not 3 points and a battering at every turn. And I think that does come with experience. I think that goes back to what we were talking about. If you haven't seen that other side, you can appreciate how good this team is. And, he lists some names like Rush and Douglas and stuff. And, I grew up watching those guys. When I first became a fan, those were the teams I was watching. And yeah, it's we were talking about this on the last podcast. I mean, this is possibly the best, I feel like, Liverpool team you watch from top to bottom in terms of quality of how many of them are world-class players.
Yeah, look at the trophies that those guys won. Now, here's the thing: if people really want to look at, we dominated the league for years.
Yes,
dominated the league. Go in and look at the points. We scrape in the league. 1, 2, winning it by 1 and 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. Never in my memory have we dominated with another team like that. To the fact where we almost 2 seasons in a row almost went perfect. That's ridiculous. Like ridiculous.
And we're
Like
on pace
even the
for-
likes of Rush, even Rush Dalglish and everybody else, that team never did that. You know?
if we
So
win out, we're on what, 94 this year?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, I think it's
ridiculous.
rare that you have two teams so dominant. You know, like there's
Yeah.
eras where, you know, like us or like another club, blah, blah, blah. But now it's odd that there's like two teams. But hey, we've done it in Europe as well. So I want to go back to, this is the Polish prince. You can tell, even though it doesn't have a name, we all know who this is. Some of us have the unfortunate luck of being born in a country like Poland and growing up in a country like USA, being forced to watch the likes of the Polish League and MLS. See, I think the Turkish League is probably better than the Polish League, but we'll probably argue with Mateusz on a different day on that. So let me get to, because this kind of like brings me to David Zadok. If you have not read it, it is, I literally saw somebody comment that it should be required reading for everybody in the Liverpool US fan group, which I definitely agree. And one of the things you say over here, and that's like the biggest thing is, and I want to get Chris's, are you going to be upset if they win 3 of the 4 trophies on offer for them this season, including the 7th European Cup, but they don't win the league or even a domestic cup double? My question to you, Chris, is, will you be upset if, let's say, out of these like 3 trophies we're going for, we just win the domestic double, or we don't win any at all? Or will you still say, hey, only so many teams can go on such a ride?
Exactly. You know, it's I've said it before. This is unprecedented. You know, it's one of those things that it just happens once in a blue moon, you know? And, well, this has never happened, actually. So we've never even had that blue moon, you know? Leave that to City fans. We, you know, like it's just, we are on the edge of greatness. And with the big highs, there's the big lows. And yes, I'll be upset. Yes, you know, whatever. But still, after I've sort of calmed down 30 minutes later, I'll look back at the season and go, that was ridiculous. We were so close to it. Let's go again next year.
How about you, David? You're the writer. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought.
I think, yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be disappointed if they don't collect one more trophy. You know, if all they do is a domestic cup double on the season, but they take us to a Champions League final and just give us a title race, like, it's better than most years you're ever going to have. You know what I mean? And my look at it too is like, it's already not a trophyless season. So you've already had a day to celebrate. And it looks like they're good. Like they are doing everything that they possibly can to give us at least one more. So honestly, if all they won was number 7, the rest of it can go to hell. Honestly, just give me number 7, and that's. I'm going to paint 5 more banners just on that number 7. You know what I mean? So for me, that would make it all worthwhile. The rest of it, I don't care. We can crash out of the league right now, not win another game if we can promise me number 7. But
see, I'm the other.
Nothing is promised. It's all.
Yeah, see, that's interesting that you say that, because I would think you're in the minority when you say that. It's odd. I mean, I
it's
hear
the
you.
best prize in world football. There's nothing like winning the Champions League, that European Cup final feeling.
Yeah, but we win the league. But we win the league and we bring the number back against United.
You're
that's
not
more
wrong.
important.
You're not wrong, but
that's
I'm
more important to me.
Yeah,
I
I understand. For me,
them.
it's always been the European Cup that's like got this real. It's where some of my most significant memories as a Liverpool supporter live.
Makes sense.
You know, so for me, the thing is special, and if you can win it, win it. But,
I think the league too. I mean, I think just because to me it feels like there's already people saying, "Oh, we have like an easier way to the final and stuff like that." You know, it's the freaking Champions League. Everybody's a freaking champion of some league that they're there. They're all good teams, but whatever. Let's not get into that. But I feel like the winning the league is more of a sign of being good on a consistent basis, being the best on a consistent basis. I guess that's why I personally prefer the league And yeah, that Manchester United thing does not hurt the
Hey,
cause.
look,
the
if
thing. Who
they'd have
cares?
won on Sunday, my answer might have been different. I don't know.
I actually don't care. Like, if we don't win the league and we win the Champions League, I'll be equally happy. You know. But if we don't win the Champions League and we win the league, I'll be
Over the moon.
ecstatic and I'll be over the moon. If we don't win either and we win the FA Cup, hey, I'll still be happy. We did a domestic cup double. Jurgen gets the full cabinet. And
Exactly. It's the last thing they haven't won as a group.
Yeah, you know, so it's another one off the list. And hey, semi-finals. I think we're definitely going to the final of Champions League. I know I've said that Villarreal have been underestimated, and they have been, but I just don't think they have enough for us. They just about scraped past Bayern, and Bayern were horrible both games. I just don't think they have enough to contain with us. They also have Serge Aurier playing for them, and that man's terrible.
Yeah, I did not realize he was there when he came off the bench. I was like, hey, man, what's up? Where you been? Chris Scott says, winning the league brings more pain to all those who hate us. Yes, I agree.
Exactly.
I know.
Hey, well, them watching us celebrate anything brings them pain. They can't stand.
Yeah, that's true.
What, so
I think.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I want 4.
To answer the question I asked you, I think I would be disappointed, obviously, if we don't win anything. But I think I'd be disappointed more for this team and this squad, because I really feel like this is the best Liverpool I watched in my lifetime. And let's face it, kids, it's a lot of years. So I really want and we watch different teams over the eras, right? Like, so we kind of live in the moment, but if you're as old as I am, then you go a decade later, you can talk in decades and say, you kind of recall that team. And I think I want to be able to, well, first of all, see another decade. And then if I do see that decade, when I look back, I want to be able to have this team have a bunch of trophies that go with their name, and not just say, oh, that was a great team. It was the best Liverpool team. When I'm like, you guys think this team is good? You guys should have seen that team with Mo and stuff. And then, but they're like, what did they win, Grandpa? And then, like, I want to be able to, like, they won this bunch of times. I just don't want them to, I just don't want this team to go down in history as, oh, they would have won more, but they did not. So I think more than my personal disappointment, I really want the squad to get the trophies they deserve under their name. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. I completely agree.
Absolutely. And like I said in my last piece before this, for them to do the FA Cup would be big, because it just, to me, it's the last thing they haven't done as a group. It's the only thing left on there for them to conquer. So if they conquer it, they've literally given you every winning experience you can have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Pardo says the glory... even the glory year teams weren't this consistently dominant. Enjoyed. I mean, he says, like, with us City in the mix, this team would be. I mean, yeah. I mean, we would have won like 3-4 in a row. I mean, it would have.
There's a question though. If City weren't this good, would we be this good?
That's a good question.
I don't know. I think you're right.
I think City need us and we need City. It's one of those things where, in the old rivalry, sort of in the start of the Premier League, for the people that are coming new into the game, in the Premier League, it was Manchester United and Arsenal kind of at the top for a while. It was Manchester United and Chelsea for a while. We fluttered with it a little bit, but it was that they were the sort of big rivalries, and they pushed each other. Arsenal wouldn't have been able to do that season, if they hadn't been pushed. That comeback season that United did, where Newcastle were 12 points ahead. If Newcastle weren't that good, I think that was the same season with our game with Newcastle, the 4-4. That was just ridiculous. That was a ridiculous season of football. It was amazing. So you need those, that kind of the yin for the yang, and we kind of play similar football. It's funny because everybody talks about the differences of Klopp and Guardiola, but we actually do play a very similar style of football. We don't play with a traditional striker. We have a false nine that drops deep, and just because he plays Phil Foden there, just because he's a midfielder, he's still playing that same kind of role that Bobby does, where he drops deep, collects the ball and feeds these guys coming in. So it's very similar, and he has Cancelo on the left doing what Trent does on the right, and it's all very sort of, his is a bit more sort of tippy tappy, whatever. Ours is a bit more direct, but yeah, it's very similar, and it's kind of like that whole comic book thing where the superhero and the hero, they're very very similar, but they're very very opposite, and I think we need that sort of battle, and we need them to push us, because if they're not pushing us, if you kind of look at what happened, we were so far ahead in the league, and when it was at the point where we were that far ahead, that's when our heads dropped and we lost the game.
And I
So
think
it was,
that's what would happen, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
we wouldn't be in these like 93, 94 points. Maybe we would have a huge lead and, the focus would not be there. And you would go against a team that's, fighting for relegation or something like that, or wants to beat the champion and stuff like that. And you would drop some points here and there. So maybe in terms of like having the point total, but I think we would still win the title easily. It just would not be the point totals. So let's get to the first of the trophies, and let's talk about this weekend's game right here. So we talked about it earlier in terms of like the lineup. What do you guys expect to see? I know you said Joel back there, but what do you expect in terms of the top three? That was the only thing. Like when I was watching the game and the substitutions started happening in the Benfica game, I got even more freaking confused about what's going to happen this weekend. So, David, what do you see for the front three in this game?
I think it goes back to the group that started on Sunday. Jota, Salah, Mane. Salah and Mane not starting yesterday. They're guaranteed to start. He might slide in Diaz and do that Mane in the 10 thing again. But my gut says, probably because when he brought Jota off early like that, I think that he'll probably play on Saturday.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think sort of Jota was brought off to just preserve him a little bit for Saturday. But Bobby's in a bit of goal scoring form. He hasn't played a lot of football, so he's kind of fresh. He hasn't had, he had a little injury there and a little break for a while, so he's coming back. He's starting to hit his stride. I would like to see the original three of Mane, Bobby, and Salah to start the game. But who knows? You just never know, because Diaz is just so consistent since he's come in. He's just threatening all the time, and now you've got sort of Bobby in form. You've got Mane, who's now getting very comfortable playing through the center, and Jota, who's also very versatile and go across. So it's super hard to tell. And honestly, I'll be happy with whoever it is for a change. Usually we've never had that where we've like, oh well, what if Bobby's not really fit? Oh, maybe they're going to play Taki. He's not really up to it yet. Whatever. But I think now I don't care. It's kind of like, oh, whoever they put up there, I'm going to be happy with. And I also know there's going to be absolute fire sitting on the bench to replace them if they're not hitting form.
Speaking of, where is Taki? Like, did we get an offer and put it in his pocket and put him in a freezer somewhere so we can just like put him out at the end of the season? I really thought we would see him yesterday, for example.
Yeah, I think Diaz coming in and just having the impact he had straight away sort of changed a lot of plans. And he would take up one of those front spaces. Well, when you add Diaz, that knocks him down the pecking order a little bit more. So he's fighting, and you even seen last night, they put Diaz on the right-hand side to start. So it was, I think, sort of, as much as I love Taki and he's a great little footballer, I just don't think he's at the level that we need him to be. Kind of like Danny Ings, great goal scorer, just isn't quite what we need. And I would say there's a good chance that he'll be moved on.
See, I thought Danny would have been the ideal Bobby replay. If he was healthy, I thought Danny was kind of like a shoe-in for this team. Plus the finishing ability, almost like what we get a little bit with Jota. Perhaps you don't get exact Bobby, but you get the finishing of Jota.
Yeah, I think Jota is kind of like the upgrade of Danny Ings, in my opinion. Again, Danny Ings is a great striker, but there's just a few areas he's lacking where Jota definitely has the advantage on him, and I think that's definitely been smart maneuvering by Klopp all around to eventually get around to that one player that he needed in that slot. He thought he had it with Danny Ings, but obviously the injuries put paid to that, and he never really. Again, it just stopped him from getting to that level we needed. Because we need players to be able to play. 34 league games a season, 35 league games a season in sort of the system and the way we play. So players that are susceptible to injury, especially when they get hit with 2 ACL injuries. I've had one of those injuries myself, and I know how bad it is. It's not fun. So I think we're definitely in the right direction now with Jota. And I've seen a lot of people talking about this Nunez kid, the Darwin kid. Why? I mean, I get it. Why would we pay 80 million? Yes, he's 22 years old. He might be a good replacement for Bobby eventually, but I just think he's a little bit out of our price range.
I think that just
for that position.
People just like new shiny toys.
Well, we just signed Diaz, and I think
just play with
he's a more complete player.
Hey, I wore this shirt for a reason. So the FA Cup is the place for one more Origi moment.
Yes.
Final moment. I'm like, this is where it happens. We're like 0-0 into extra time, and Origi bags the winner on Saturday. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I saw.
Give me one more Divock moment.
Man, I mean, I will miss that dude. He's a character. I mean, that's part of like the squad. I mean, when we talk about, like I say, looking back at like a lot of the memories that this current squad has given you, freaking Origi is in like half of those big moments somehow.
Think about it. The Dortmund game, he scored the first goal. The comeback against Dortmund, he scored the first goal, right? Corner taking. Like, if think about it, one of the greatest moments in the history of this club, corner taken quickly, Origi.
The derby, 90+4.
Yeah.
The Champions League final
sealed the deal. Yeah.
So I mean,
the next season he bags a brace against Everton that is unbelievable. It was such ridiculous quality. I was like, he might be the best finisher on the team.
Yeah,
you're just like.
I remember that ball he brought down that game, like just like this long ball. He just like it almost looked like he picked it up and brought it down with his foot. And it's just like,
I actually think Divock has been a sort of a victim of our system and how we play football. And I think it's just a testament to him and his work rate and his ability to just put the work in there and still force his way in there because he's not, a natural left winger. And a lot of the time he's been brought in on that left berth to replace Mane in games. It's very, very rarely you'll see him through the middle, and we all know that Origi move caught in on the right, big bending ball into the far corner. That's his move. But he even when he played for Belgium and stuff, he played through the center. He is a striker. That's who he is. But fair play to him, and I hope he does well. I think he'll do very well at AC Milan. And good man. Fair play to him.
Yeah.
We have to have just like over the summer, just have a podcast with just like a Divock appreciation one. Maybe I'll have Bickler host it since he is the biggest Divock guy. We'll have him do the host.
We'll have an Origi farewell.
One of my favorite goals. One of my favorite goals he ever scored was that one against Preston North End in the League Cup this year when he just sort of flipped his foot at it, and did like a scorpion thing, chipped the keeper. I was like, that's the most Divock thing I've ever seen in my life.
So Sparky Parky says Thiago, Fabinho, Henderson for midfield. David, do you agree? Is this basically our big game midfield at the moment now?
Yeah, I think it is, but I don't know as you'll see it on Sunday. I'll be honest.
What do you expect?
I expect him to slide somebody in there, either Keita or I'm just throwing this out there, but it's possible that he takes a chance on Harvey Elliott at some point. And
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, because I think he's got to preserve the three, right? For like, they're going to start against United. Now, Fabinho got his rest. Thiago got his rest. I think it might be Hendo's turn. So then it's like, well, who goes with Fabinho and Thiago best? And actually, it might be Harvey Elliott is what I'm thinking. And, the kid started the season so well. Klopp backed him, talked about what a player he is. They've hyped him a lot, and he's turned him into a midfielder. So, this might be a great chance for him. But I don't know. It could be Curtis Jones. He's known for having a wild one in some of these teams, especially in a cup game. But I'd be really actually interested to see Harvey Elliott make an appearance in this one.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up between Harvey and Keita in that
Mhm.
role. I think either Hendo or Thiago. I think we'll be surprised to see that three of Thiago, Henderson, Fabinho, but possibly. I mean, that is our big game sort of three. I would love to see Harvey Elliott. My only thing is he hasn't really played for a while. He was relegated to the under 23s for a while for his little sort of Instagram indiscretion, I believe. I think that's probably what happened there. I think he probably got punished and he got sent there and told, here's a lesson for you, which means he might come back with a bit of fire, So
Well, he's also
that
got
could be,
more minutes under his belt.
yeah.
know?
So I think, again, I'm not really that worried either way. The only person that kind of worries me would be Curtis Jones, and the only reason I say that is he sometimes he tends to dally on the ball, and City
Mhm.
like us are a high pressing team. They like to get in your face and steal the ball high up the pitch, and Curtis sometimes dallies a little too much. So I think that's why Naby and Harvey are a little more likely. Although
I
Curtis
mean,
going
Naby
for
looks good right now, so I would go
Naby,
with that.
Naby's playing the best he's ever played for us.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's no reason why he wouldn't get a start. So again, I'm
You guys
not
are
really that
scaring me.
I'm not really I'm not really that fussed either way.
Yeah, you guys are scaring me. I just don't trust against a team like City that's so disciplined. I feel like somebody like similar to Jones. I feel like Elliott would be taken advantage of and will be pulled out of position very easily, and that's probably my biggest fear. And Chris Scott says Fabinho, Thiago, and Keita. I just don't want to see Thiago and Keita out there at the same time because I think it's a huge defensive liability. So I feel like Fab and Hendo have to be out there. If anything, I would have thought, and especially a handle coming out, I almost feel like, saving some legs for the weekend. But if anybody, if Keita is going to come in because of his form, which I don't know, you guys know, I'm like the, Naby Lad is not my biggest guy, but I just feel like Thiago and Keita together is a recipe for disaster. Similar to the same reason I don't want Elliott out there in a game like this. Number one, like you said, Chris, he hasn't been out there in a long time. And the pace of this game is
I'm gonna throw a couple things at you. One, if you go back to the beginning of the season, what was Keita doing? He was kind of playing Genie's role, and he was doing it pretty well. So he's versatile enough that you can kind of balance him with whatever it is you want to do. But here's another factor that's going to be at play on Saturday. Kyle Walker's out, right?
Yep.
So this is going to change their back line. They're either going to go Zinchenko and push Cancelo over, or they're going to put Ake back there. But I think they'll probably go with Zinchenko, right? Just for the pace.
Yeah.
Okay. Then is De Bruyne healthy? Can he play?
Yeah.
If not, that means probably Grealish comes into the team, and that changes the way that they play. Like, they can't do the same thing with Grealish as they can with KDB. It's gonna slow the attack just a bit, and you don't have that threat from distance quite as much. Like, KDB can kill you from anywhere, whereas Grealish, you kind of know what he's gonna do. He's gonna come at you. He's gonna try to get into the box. He's gonna try to create things for other players that way. But I just think it changes everything. So, you might be able to do a different midfield because the game isn't going to be like it was Sunday.
I think also there's the option of possibly Ruben Diaz coming back into the fold, which also gives them the option of pushing John Stones to the right back, which they've done on occasion this season.
At your own risk, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a risk either way. I think it's hard. I mean, even playing Zinchenko there, Zinchenko's a left-sided player. The fact is, Cancelo's a right back playing at left back.
Yeah.
It only makes sense to play him at right back and put Zinchenko at left back. Yeah. Which changes their dynamic again because they're so used to him Cancelo sort of comes up into that sort of central defensive midfield position a lot, and then he goes off into that left wing a lot. If he's playing on the right, it changes that dynamic. He won't be able to cut in as much because he hasn't got the right foot to cut in on. So I don't know. It's going to be very different. I hope KDB doesn't play. He's the one I'm worried about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care. I don't really care about Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker's a hit and miss kind of player. The
Kyle
only
Walker's
thing he
always
really
good for an error, actually, so it might be
Yeah.
good to have him in
he
there.
he just has
He's just been in
pace.
form lately. Like I thought he played
Yeah.
really well Sunday.
He has pace, and if you want to play the likes of a Diaz, you don't want them going up against Walker because Walker's going to just run with him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to tackle him; he just has to run with him
yeah,
and
just
stop
keep him
him.
in front.
Yeah, just keep him there. So, Walker being out is good. Fingers crossed, KDB's out. As much as I like KDB, he's a great player. Seems like a nice guy. Just a shame
He
he
can
plays
play
for
later.
City. Yeah,
Yeah,
he can.
absolutely. He has years ahead of him, man.
Yeah,
He'll be fine.
he can play against Real Madrid. It's fine.
Exactly.
Megan says Hendo, Fab, Thiago, and we kind of go back to that, and I agree with this, with the chess match thing, where kind of like what you were saying earlier, Chris, in terms of playing Matip now and then saving Konate for United, playing Thiago now, saving Keita for the United game, because that's coming in 3 days, and obviously they don't have Champions League or anything, so they'll be well rested going with us. So let's get some score predictions over here. What do you guys have? Chris, let's start with you. You're the one that's going to put me at ease like you always do.
I actually think, looking back at Sunday, we were not at our best in any way, shape, or form, and they struggled. To score against us, even the mess we were in. We were at about 65% on Sunday, and they were at about 95%. And we got a draw. I think anything above 85% for us, we beat them, no matter what form they're in. I think just we're at that point now where we're that cohesive as a team and as a unit, and now that we have that depth, and anytime we're playing anything above 90%, I don't think any team on the planet can touch us right now. So I'm going to go, because we're second home, 4-1.
Man, you do this every goddamn podcast I bring. He just comes over and is like, "Oh, Tim, don't even worry about it. We're gonna
it's fine.
Don't even get up in the morning. We're gonna win this." And then I'm like over here, me and Stitch are like circling each other in the freaking living room watching the game. I go actually with what Chris Scott is saying, 3-1, and then Mane opens Salah with a brace. I'm actually going the other way around. I think Mane gets 2, Mo gets 1. David, what do you have?
We've played them twice this year. It was 2-2 both times. I think we'll get another 2, but I think that we're going to have a great defensive game this one. Virgil's going to be fresh. He's just going to put out every single fire and make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah.
And they'll get a penalty maybe. But
I'm going to call you guys before the game starts because that's like therapy for me. Yeah.
It's going to be 2-1 to the Reds, but it won't even feel like a 2-1. It'll feel like a 2-0.
Okay.
Do you remember the pictures? There used to be the Kolo Touré picture. There's no need to be upset. we're gonna change it now, and we're gonna make it Virgil's face. There's no need to be anxious.
I always find a reason or a way to be upset. It's just like how I watch games. But it goes back to what you were saying, David, like what we were talking about earlier. Those wins are a lot more fun than, kickback ones. I do need the kickback occasionally, so says my doctor. But apart from that, I think, those games where you kind of like on the edge, obviously are a lot more exciting. Well, gentlemen, hopefully when we are back on the air on Monday, we'll be in final getting ready to beat up on United's. My brother's already talking shit, so gotta shut that one out pretty fast. You would think after the last game he would lay low, but he's trying to make a comeback, I guess. But thanks to all those.
My prediction.
Hey, one note before we go. one note before we go. Tomorrow is actually which is Friday the 15th, the 33rd anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster. So Justice for the 97, You'll Never Walk Alone. And so just a little bit of remembrance for tomorrow. And I'll let you finish off.
Actually, we're looking to do a section on that entire thing where there's like more resources. Because I know, we were talking about earlier, and that's one of the main things that we try to do with the website and have as many resources as possible for people who are looking to learn more about the club and the history and stuff like that. And obviously that's the biggest thing, and that's the thing that they see everywhere. And sometimes I notice fans are afraid to ask because they feel like they should know. So I think it would be important to have, because there's a lot of like good documentaries and videos and stuff like that you can learn from, books you can read on and stuff.
Loads of stuff. the one thing I get asked about the most is this. Is the Eternal Flame tattoo, which I actually need to get fixed because it still says 96. I need to get that fixed. But yeah, it's the one thing.
How does that work? I'm not a tattoo guy, so is that a doable operation?
Oh yeah, it's doable. Yeah, it's fixable. But yeah, it's the way I have it on my arm. So when I'm standing with my arms down, you can see it up my arm, and people come over, and it says JFT 96 at the bottom, and they always want to ask what that means. So when I explain what it is, they're like, "Oh, whoa." And funny enough, actually, there's another podcast called the Sofa King podcast. They actually did a bit on Hillsborough last year, actually on my asking. They're actually a comedy podcast, and they do stuff about murderers and miscarriages of justice and stuff like that. And they make light of things and stuff like that. But they were actually very respectful of Hillsborough and that. And being that it's a podcast and the way they do things, they have one person to argue. But even the guy arguing was very respectful about it. So if you want to listen to that, that's another good sort of little resource as well. And there's so many resources out there, like all the, even just the Wikipedia page. You know what I mean? There's a lot of information in there. But if you want to do anything, get on the Hillsborough, the 30 for 30 on ESPN.
Yes,
their Hillsborough documentary is the sort of, that's the one. So yeah, give that a watch and learn a bit about the club history and what those little flames on the back of your shirt mean.
Sounds good. Thanks again for everybody listening in, chiming in today. Give us a like, a follow, all that good stuff, especially our YouTube channel if you follow us there, and Twitter, where we're finally tweeting more back to the current decade and ages over there as well. So thanks a lot, everybody. See you guys Monday.
Take it easy.